Hi everyone, and welcome back to TILLY, the interactive lupus link for you. I'm your host, Marisa. Some of you may already know me as LupusChick. TILLY is brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of New England. It is an interactive weekly episodic series where we focus on lupus, experts in the community, anywhere from doctors, dietitians, psychologists, patients, advocates. And today I am so excited to bring in Emmitt Henderson of Male Lupus Warriors. Some of you may already follow him on social media. If you don't, you're definitely going to want to check him out after this episode. So hi, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Marisa, thank you very much for having me. It's such an honor, such an honor.
I have been wanting to get you on for quite some time, so I'm very excited.
Would you have me?
So everyone, this is Emmitt, and you're going to absolutely fall in love with him. He's doing amazing work. So I feel like for many years, some of the men that I know have been very quiet and really haven't spoken up, but I feel like it's starting to change. And you are such an incredible voice in the male lupus community. So I just want to thank you for that and for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, thank you. And it's something that I saw that was much needed. So I thought that once I got into the game, it was just a way to pretty much express, things that I've gone through. And it's one of those where I didn't know that I had a story till I told my story.
Absolutely. So I always tell people, like, when you see a pain point in your community or your world, like, that should be your focus. That should be the place that you put yourself into and you create change. And I feel like you've done it so well. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So I want to dig in a little bit. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about your story and, just maybe some of the misconceptions that people have of lupus being only a woman's disease, which we know is not true. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then, where you live, your family, anything you want to share. And then I'd love to hear a little bit more about, like, when did you first have symptoms? When did you know something was not right?
Okay, well, I can go back. I mean, officially, I was diagnosed with systemic lupus in 1995, but I've had symptoms going back to 1980. So in 1980, having a rash all over my body and fevers at high temperatures, the doctors didn't know what that was. So with everything that I was going through, they couldn't tell my parents what it was. Through a year, I went through medication, cream, and whatever it took to keep my fevers down. About a year later, it kind of went away. Then the joint pains happened. So the symptoms from my lupus started with major joint pains. So bad where it was hard for me to even hold a glass of jar, to open up a jar, to do anything. Basically, I was working in the automotive field, so it was hard for me to do my job. Every time I went in to get that checked out, the doctors dismissed me because all they did was x-rays, and x-rays didn't show anything at all. So you can imagine, I'm looking healthy, walking into a clinic telling I can't move my wrists, I can't move my knees, I got problems in my shoulders. Every x-ray taken, nothing's wrong, they send me home. I got used to it to where those little aches and pains I lived with. I didn't go in anymore until the pain got more severe to my lower back. Unfortunately, the lower back pain, finding out going into the emergency room that I was already in renal failure. So at that point, 3 weeks into the hospital, about week 2.5, a rheumatologist comes in, and I'm not knowing what that person's title was or what it meant, but she told me that it's rare that you may have this disease. And okay, what disease is this? She said, it's more likely in women, rare in men. It's also rare for my ethnicity, also rare for my age. I was 25 years old at the time in 1995. Do the math, you'll know how old I am. At that point, when she told me that, it was something that was hard to kind of take in, that it was rare in men, but a woman's disease. She said I had systemic lupus. So from there, Marisa, everything kind of went from treating with high doses of medication, from steroids to chemotherapy, through radiation, with everything that has, to try to keep my LUSA down, to stop being so aggressive. Just a couple things that lupus has done to me through the years, where then one of the biggest things it did and the challenges was when it attacked my heart. When it got to my heart, I was ended up being in a coma for about 3.5 weeks so they could sustain. My heart was basically almost at the last beat, but the IVIG at the time was pretty much what got me back on my feet and kind of revived me at that point. From there, getting out of rehab, I had to learn to walk, talk because of the paralyzation that they did for me at the time. So I ended up from there, the doctors required and recommended for me to do something because my heart could not take another flare like that. So we ended up doing a clinical trial. That clinical trial they found for me was a bone marrow stem cell transplant. What that did was basically clean my blood, remove all the lupus cells, revitalize my system with new blood cells, and that actually helped slow the aggression of my lupus at that time. But however, lupus had already done the damage. The lower back pain was because of the renal failure, so I had kidney damage. I had a kidney replacement. Thank you to my little brother that helped me out with that. I've had joint replacements in my right knee and my left shoulder. I also had my gallbladder just removed recently. I went through liver infections. I went through ulcers through my whole body, including my esophagus. Lungs was affected. I had to use oxygen for a long time. And then the basic things in the autoimmune, gout, shingles, fatigue, everything else that had gone to me. So for me to do what I'm doing today is a result from everything that had happened to me back then.
Wow. Emmitt, I had no idea like that you have gone through so much. We often hear like, wow, like he or she, like they're always online and they're doing so much and they look so vibrant and right? Like that's a misconception that we get all the time, and social media can obviously enhance these misconceptions, but to know the story behind everything that you're doing and just everything that you face, like it's incredible. And I think that, not just men, but women and caregivers and doctors, they need to hear these stories. They need to hear your story, and they need to understand that what people see on the outside and what their actual journey has been is so far from one another.
It is.
I want to like dig in a little bit. So when you were in the hospital and you met this rheumatologist for the first time and she told you about systemic lupus and the kidney failure and you started doing the chemo, and obviously like you, I was also diagnosed younger, and it was at a time, for people that are young right now, but back then, like we didn't have doctors really talking about lupus. There were no blogs, there was no commercials, there's no billboards. You never really heard the word. So what was it like to, one, get that diagnosis and most likely have no other, at least men that you could talk to about it, but then having to go on such, hard medications like chemo and things like that. So like, where was your mental health at that point?
My mental health, Marissa, was confused, very confused. One thing to not leave out back in 1995, what I didn't have was Google. I didn't have the World Web to search at the time to find out what was lupus. I was given papers to read out about it. Everything indicated to a woman. So it was hard for me to even ask my doctor. She just said that just follow these same things. It's the same that applies to men. And I'm like, well, then if that's the case, why isn't there anything mentioned here about men? So it was hard for me to kind of comprehend that. At the time, as a 25-year-old man, I owned my own property. I had a good paying job. I had everything going for me that a man is supposed to have. I had 2 young kids I was raising as well. So I felt like I was on top of the rock, on top of everything. But now to be told I had a woman's disease, first of all, that never left my family. I didn't tell people what it was. I was one of those guys that was ashamed at the time to explain what was wrong with me. Everybody saw me going back and forth to the hospital, and I specifically told them what the problem was, but not the overall problem of it being lupus. So one of the biggest parts was me trying to find out and find the support groups to go out to look for, to learn more about it, to speak to people. And I'm thinking, okay, I found one here in San Diego, and let me go and check this out. I'm expecting to see other men, women, just anybody with lupus that I could learn from people. Hate to say it, when I got there, I ended up walking through a room, and opening the door, I saw nobody but older white women. I thought I was in the wrong room until I saw the word lupus written up on the board. So had nothing to do with who was in there. It was just the fact that I was the only guy. The instructor was a woman. I told everybody, sorry, wrong room, and I left. From that point, I remember not trying to reach out because there wasn't nothing for men that I can find anymore. So I had to just do my own self-learn, self-educate, and my knowledge of everything is through my own experience of what I went through and from my doctor's experiences.
So tell me sort of the timeline, like after this experience, and also I think becoming somewhat used to living with the disease, knowing, finally learning like what your triggers are, learning over time really like how your body reacts and taking care of yourself and things that you need. When was the time frame, or when did that light bulb go off that you were like, okay, I am ready now, like I have enough of a foundation and I'm secure enough in this that now I feel like I can go out into the world and start helping other people. So tell us how that happened and how Male Lupus Warriors came to be.
Oh, absolutely. However, that happened a long time ago with me personally. But to go out there and have the time to create my own vision of what I wanted to do took a lot longer because, again, as a guy with a high career in the automotive industry, my thing in my mind was always making money. I knew I was sick on the back end, but I need to keep my grind going. I need to work. I need to show everybody that I can't let this woman disease beat me. So I was the type of guy that worked 12 to 16 hours. As a manager, keep in mind, I could be at work sick and nobody will know it because I manage. I'm not doing everyday labor that's taking me out or having the problems. Last year, 2019, lupus finally affected now my brain. That they also took out my gallbladder at the same time, but they found something on my brain that took me out of work. Because of this, there is no open return date when I'm going back to work. It is something to this day that the doctors still cannot diagnose what they found in my brain. And I'm going over a year and 4 months now. So since that had happened, I looked at the time to where, you know what, I got time now to talk about this. I need people to know what's going on with lupus, what it's done to me in my 25 years, and then even going back to 1980. So because I had problems finding male support, where I love to see the women in their forums, I love to see them talking about it, advocating for it, I love to, but my question again, where are all the guys? So I knew that I wanted to create my own organization, and I wanted to make my organization known to where this is a guy talking about lupus. So therefore I came up with the name, not just a lupus warrior, but a male lupus warrior. MLW, that is my title, that is my trait. And when I'm out there now, all my gear and everything I wear, you know, I have everything in it. This shirt here, I don't know if you can see it, but it says limited edition men with lupus, and it has MLW at the bottom for Male Lupus Warriors, because it's just one of those things that I heavily want to put out there, that for guys like myself at the time that couldn't find support, but that was then. This is now. There are a lot more support out there, not just me, but other organizations that's out there that are willing to open up to listen to other guys. Let us talk about what hinders us. Let us talk about what our feelings are. We may not be able to talk about the strangers that don't understand us, because unless you walk in our shoes, it will be hard to understand. But guys, I've walked in your shoes. I've gone through some of the things you've gone through and a lot of things I didn't. We're here to learn off each other. You want to learn from me, I can learn from you, no matter how long you've been sick in the game. We're here for each other. And that's the whole thing, what I wanted to start with Male Lupus Warriors. I started my merchandise of selling product with Male Lupus Warriors to female, customizing and accommodating to the females as well, just to let everybody know that, yes, my organization is preaching from a guy with 25+ years experience with lupus.
Well, I love what you're doing, and I think, you know, you hit on a couple of things that I want to touch on. Like, one, even though, you know, if another guy comes to your organization and reaches out to you, he may not have had a kidney transplant or had like the heart involvement, but you guys can still both one another talk to each other and understand, how does this affect your job? How does this affect your mental state? What is it doing to your relationships? You know,
Absolutely.
how comfortable are you around, are you able to speak to people openly and transparently and having that support system? And, you know, you mentioned the word shame earlier, and that really stuck out to me because I think that's something really important to talk about. Tell me, in your opinion and in your experience, when you and I grew up, like 70s and 80s, and
Yes.
today, how social media and actually putting yourself out there breaks that bondage of shame and feeling like so unworthy and not enough and not like everyone else, where before we had this technology and we had these platforms, you know, people were just really alone and
Right.
really felt that, but now we're able to sort of break through that. So tell me a little bit about that shift, and how do you ever feel that shame or that feeling of ashamed anymore? Or do you really feel like, no, now I'm at a place where I am out there and I'm ready to talk about this and I'm proud of who I am?
You know, and you nailed it when you said the part about people feeling that they're alone. Since breaking out on social media with everything that we can put out there, it's letting people know that there are people like you that are going through the same exact thing. There are brothers out there that are out there going through what I'm going through. However, they can't talk to this person that they may not know anything about lupus because they won't understand. I've had a lot of people approach me in that sense. You have lupus. Tell me, how did you do this? What about your job? What about your family? How did people look up to you? It's kind of like the first thing that I express to them is mental health. We need to learn to accept it up here mentally, that physically we are sick. However, it's still not the end of the road. I was still able, with everything that I've been through, flares after flares, I was able to still maintain work. I was still able to keep myself off of the ground to let people know, well, wait a minute, this guy is sick, but yet look what he's doing. He's still doing this and that. Once I got out of work, I had now the freedom to do everything that I wanted to do. So I wanted to show other guys, other women, people with lupus, people with any autoimmune disease, that we do not have to be restricted just because we have this autoimmune disease. We can go out there and do it. Again, putting everything out on social media, I'm getting people on it daily. And it's not just guys, should I say, with this autoimmune disease. It's guys that need to understand about lupus or any autoimmune disease. With the big percentage of lupus patients being women, they have husbands, brothers, nephews, cousins, fathers that they may need to get educated on what this is, so everybody in the family can understand what lupus is. Therefore, no judgment is made. And so if I can go out there and teach one guy any lesson in regards to what my story, how it helped me, and they can take away from that, then I did my job as a male lupus warrior.
Absolutely. Well, you are definitely doing your job and so much more. And I love, like, many years ago, I would sometimes interview my husband on camera because we had a lot of women that would write in and say, my husband just doesn't understand why I'm able to do stuff one day and the next day I'm stuck in bed. You know,
Right.
can your husband talk to him? You know, that was like the common question. But my husband doesn't have lupus, but he understands what it's like to live with someone that has lupus and be a caregiver. But coming from you, I mean, it's the perfect way to get through, you know, whether it's a brother or a father or a spouse, you know, or partner, to just, so they can understand from a male's point of view of what's going on, how it affects, I
Yes.
mean, lupus seeps into every area of your life.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and you
The
have to be able to talk
education.
about
Oh yeah, the education part of it is key. However, the other side, the other person also has to be open to listen. I also had at the same time guys that did not want to hear from me because they didn't, when the wives would ask to talk to their husbands about what I go through, they don't want to talk to a guy. They don't want to hear this. They try to, keep that ego to where they're understanding enough to, they know everything. But guys, there's a lot more to know. Even to this day, with my experience, as long as I've been with lupus, there is always something to learn, something to read. I love reading everybody's stories. They may have gone through more than me, may have not gone more through me. However, we still learn from each other about this disease in general. And this is what helps me motivate to put what I put out there it's because from knowledge and from experience, not anything that I'm reading from a book. It's from personal, type of testimonies, and of course my own journey.
Absolutely. Well, so before we wrap up, I just want to ask you, what's your mission behind Male Lupus Warriors? Tell me about some of the community events. A friend of mine saw you out in San Diego doing one. Like, tell us what your plans are, what you have going on, and let everyone know where they can find you.
What your friend did was saw me at a park where this past September, I ended up doing my own version of my own lupus walk. All the lupus walks went virtual. San Diego kind of opened up a little bit where we could have activities, so I did. I wanted people to come out. Let's get a sense of normalcy. Let's see people in purple all day. Let's talk with other people with lupus, and let's kind of get to know each other, relate each other. So I brought the little community of San Diego together, which was a very good event. Prior to that, I also connected with another nonprofit that I'm with, where we do a lot of community outreach. We do a lot of feeding to the community. We help the homeless women, single mothers, children. We do a lot. Anything that we can do to help the community. With my future plans, of course, is to continue what I'm doing with advocacy. I've done it with the Lupus Foundation of Southern California here in San Diego. I've been on a lot of platforms, pretty much all over social media doing this. And my plan is to continue to do it, to let other men know in the community know that, yes, men get lupus too, and we are speaking out. I'm not quiet. I like to yell out to let people know this is something that we can do, but we can all do this together. So as time goes on, just putting my name out there as Male Lupus Warriors, opening to every organization to join me, and let's put the word out there. I want to see lupus in commercials, billboards. I want to see it everywhere to where people stop asking what is lupus and have an idea and have a sense of what it is. You can find me on social media, which I am on Facebook and Instagram under Male Lupus Warriors. On Facebook, you can actually find me under my name as Emmitt Henderson III, promoting Male Lupus Warriors. And I also just started a Twitter account that I still got to get used to, but I'm under MLWEH3 for Male Lupus Warriors, Emmitt Henderson III.
That's awesome. Well, you're definitely out there. I see you all over, like every day. I'm like, oh, there's Emmitt. What is he doing now? You're amazing. I'm so grateful for you. The community is so grateful for you. And just the number of men and women that you're helping by sharing, by putting yourself out there, by being bold, not holding back. It's just so necessary, and we're just grateful. And the Lupus Foundation of New England is so thankful for you to do this interview with us. So again, we appreciate your time.
And thank you to yourself and LupusChick for promoting this platform for guys. We need this type of exposure to get out. And I can't thank you enough. Can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. So for all of our viewers, if you don't follow Emmitt, please go right now, follow him on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I know you mostly from your Instagram, which I absolutely love. So you're gonna fall in love with him and everything that he's doing, and just the stories that he puts out there. They're amazing. So thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Tilly and spending some time with me and Emmitt. We're so grateful for you, and stay tuned for the next episode. You're gonna love it just as much as you love this one. Take care. Have a great night. Bye.